Hey friends, ever get confused when going to buy a sofa at a furniture store, wondering which fabric do I choose, which one's best for me or my family? Well, in today's video, we're going to cover all the types of applications that you might see on a sofa. Then we're going to talk about the manufacturing process, and if you stick around, I'll talk to you about the fabrics to avoid or at least to be aware of, and I'll share a real-life horror story of a fabric sofa that I personally owned. So let's get going. First up, leather, one of my favorites. Likely the most durable fabric article you can put on a sofa. It's really not even a fabric, it's actually a skin, a hide, very thick, anywhere from 0.5 millimeter all the way up to 10 millimeters depending on the application. Very durable, very strong product. Not as flexible as a fabric, but definitely last a lot longer than a fabric. The cons are, it may not feel as inviting as a fabric sofa. And you may retain a little bit more heat or cold depending on the application or how much polyurethane coating they put on the surface. There are some leather hides that are natural with a dye throughout that don't have as much polyurethane that would not be as susceptible to temperature change. Next up, polyester. Probably the baseline for most sofas that you see out there, or at least used in a blend with other types of synthetic fabrics. It's really great, has a lot of options. You can dye it many different colors. But the downside is it can be susceptible to cracking if exposed to extreme heat over time. Next up is olefin. Olefin is basically the product of melted plastic. Again, another synthetic product, maybe not so much like a polyester, but could be blended in with polyesters to give you a unique look and feel on your sofa. The downside is often if it's exposed to sunlight for a long period of time, it can become brittle and crack. Next up is Rayon, a semi-synthetic product that is really soft and inviting. But the downsides are it can wrinkle. It can also scratch easily and has a low elasticity recovery, which means it's not very flexible. Now we have cotton. Cotton is a great product and natural. Probably one of the oldest fabrics we've used here in the United States. They use cotton for jeans oftentimes, but it's a different type of product, a little more durable, a little thicker. Another version of cotton. Cotton is very susceptible to staining, so there's a negative, but it's also a natural product. So if you want something natural, cotton is the way to go. Now we have acrylic. Acrylic is a synthetic fabric that imitates wool. I'm sure you've seen like those wool coats. Acrylic mimics that look. It's a soft fabric that dries quickly, but it can develop often a significant amount of piling. We'll talk about that later. It's a soft fabric that dries quickly, and it's non-resistant to abrasion. It can also absorb allergens. Nobody likes allergens. Next up, we have chenille. Chenille is a super soft, naturally obtained fabric, and it comes from the word caterpillar. You'll notice it has a raised consistency when you look at it, almost sometimes like woven rows of fabric put together. You'll oftentimes see a backing applied to it to keep it together. Chenille is soft, durable, and easy to clean, but it's also stretchable and not very pet-friendly. Next up, we have vinyl. Vinyl is what you might see on a promotional recliner. It has a very consistent look, you can apply lots of colors to it, and oftentimes it'll have a backing, sometimes a cotton backing. The downsides to vinyl are if it's not cared for properly or is exposed to extreme heat, it can crack over time. Now we have denim. Denim is a more durable version of cotton, very thick. If you will, maybe those jeans, those old Western movies that you might have looked at and some of the material that was used. It's a heavily woven cotton that's very thick. Unfortunately, denim, be it very durable, is not as breathable and susceptible to staining. Next up, we have nylon. It has a high resistancy to wearing, and you can dye it, but it's another synthetic fabric. The downside is it's not as breathable and can attract static electricity. That's no fun. Now we have microfiber. Microfiber is basically a version of polyester, like synthetic fibers that are woven together and sanded with a certain application that gives it a soft feel. So in the microfiber world, you might be used to a really soft hand when you touch it, but it's still a synthetic product. The benefits are there's lots of applications, lots of color options. The downside is it's a synthetic fabric and may not be as durable as some of the others. Okay, as promised, I'm going to give you some of the versions of product that are less likely to pile. Now, what is piling? Piling is when you look at your sofa over time, you notice these little balls of fabric that are building up around it. I'm sure you've seen it. So I'll give you an example of some of the products that are more susceptible to piling and some that are not, and then what you can do if you have a sofa that has fabric that starts to pile. Sweaters can do it, jackets can do it, anything that is utilizing these types of fabrics can pile, but the good news is you can get rid of it. Okay, silk, hemp, cotton, cashmere, and wool. those are the products that are natural products that will not pile. That's good news, right? Nobody really wants to deal with piling. So now, which fabrics do you want to watch out for that can pile? Polyester, nylon, rayon, acrylic, and spandex. Those are all man-made products more likely to pile over time. Now, as I said before, you can get rid of the piling, but it's something that you're going to have to maintain. So how does piling occur? Well, it's wear. So when you are sitting on your sofa with a pair of jeans, let's say, you are creating friction on the fabric. And if you have a synthetic fabric, it's not all synthetic fabrics, but some of them, that friction will cause some of those fibers to build up into little balls on top of the fabric itself. And the only way to get rid of that is to either get a piling brush, which you can buy at hardware stores. You can brush it off and take it off, or you can actually get a razor, like you might shave with, and you can take that stuff right off the top. And it'll take a long time for it to build back up again. You'll usually notice it, I would say probably no earlier than maybe 6 months, because you got to get a certain wear ability before it'll start to occur, or it could even be years, but you can get rid of it, which is good news. And it's usually only in the areas of high traffic. Now let's talk about my horror story in the sofa that I own. All right. So I bought a sofa from a manufacturer that was really well known and had a very good warranty, except for the fabric itself. Most manufacturers only have a 1-year warranty on the fabric itself. Now this particular fabric was made to mimic a chenille, kind of mimic a chenille. So it had like microscopic rows of fabric with a backing on it. I believe the problem with this particular fabric is it didn't have a thick enough backing to hold the fabric together. As I stated earlier, a chenille is like rows of fabric. Oftentimes a synthetic version of chenille might be a blend of silks and polyesters and rayons to make it look like a chenille with a raised pattern on it. My sofa kind of had a look like that. But what happened is, as I'm illustrating in this video here, the fabric started to separate, and you could see in between, if you had a magnifying glass, where the rows of fabric were just separating in between. In other words, the weak points of the fabric. And so I believe if this manufacturer would have used a thicker backing, this wouldn't have occurred. The chase part of the sofa actually happened maybe 4 years in, and then the seat cushion starting to occur about 7 years in. So hopefully you'll have your sofa longer than that and not have to replace the cushions. Cushion cores sometimes are warranted, but the fabric itself generally has a 1-year warranty across most manufacturers. So be aware of that. In this case, unless I want to buy a brand new cushion and probably a few more of them, I'm going to have to replace the sofa. So it started about 4 years in, and then about 7 years in, it started spreading over to the other cushions. And again, that's just a separation. So the one thing you want to be aware of when you're buying fabrics is how tight is the weave of the fabric, right? If you had a microfiber or a flat polyester type of fabric, you probably wouldn't have separation. But if you have something that mimics a chenille, you could have some separation if it doesn't have a proper backing applied to it. And you can usually tell by unzipping it and looking, or feeling how thick, when you pinch it, how thick that fabric is. So that's what I got. All right, so there you have it. All the types of fabrics you might want to put on a sofa, or at least be mindful of. So what do you think? Are you going to be thinking about the types of fabrics that are applied to these sofas when you go to buy? Or does it matter to you? Is price point more important than the type of fabric? Put your comments below, and maybe share any horror stories that you've experienced with fabric. We'd love to know. And if there's something else you want to learn, please share. And tell your friends. Till next time.